Hawaii is already challenging the new version of the travel ban. The state is arguing against the Trump administration's definition of bona fide close relationship. And the U.S. Supreme Court will take up the entire order later this year. An almost evenly split bench will decide the legality of the measure. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reed is in Washington. Paula, the temporary ban goes into effect Thursday night. Break this all down for us. Who's allowed in and who's not?
Well, anyone coming from those 6 countries, if you're trying to come here, you will be blocked unless you have a bona fide relationship to someone or something here in the United States. Now, bona fide relationship, what does that mean? The Supreme Court didn't really give us any guidance. It ultimately left it up to the administration. Marina, they've come through with some guidelines. They specifically said, for example, if you were enrolled in a university here, or if you have an offer of employment in a company based in the United States, or if you have a member of your family here. Now, Rena, you and I, everyone knows that a family, that can be a subjective term. So again, the government came out with some guidelines, some specifics. They say that if you are a parent, a spouse, a child, or a sibling, you can come in. But if you're a grandparent, fiance, an aunt, an uncle, or a cousin, you're out.
So how exactly, Paula, did the administration determine who's allowed, and what happens if you can't get in?
It's not really clear how they came to these specific definitions. There have been some background briefings with senior administration officials, and I've read through them. They really didn't provide a lot of clarity on specifically how they split these hairs between grandparents and siblings. But it does appear that there is some flexibility. For example, if you cannot get in and you are coming here as a grandparent to receive some medical treatment, it's likely that if you can document that, you can't just make the claim. You actually have to have some evidence and documentation. You might be let in. And there may be other circumstances. If you can document an ongoing relationship to someone or something here in the United States, they may make an exception for you.
So this ban only lasts 90 days. It was set to expire in October. That happens to be when the Supreme Court will also be hearing the case. How do you see this all playing out?
It'll be interesting to see whether or not this actually gets to the Supreme Court. In its opinion, it sort of signaled to the administration, reminding them that this was only supposed to be a temporary policy to give them time to review their vetting procedures and to make a more permanent set of rules going forward for how we're going to vet people, specifically from countries where the government is not stable and not always reliable, the information that we're getting. So it seemed that the Supreme Court was trying to nudge them to come up with their permanent rules, which would make these October arguments unnecessary. But if this does go before the Supreme Court, the fact that they have allowed this policy to go forward, that sort of signals to us that the administration will likely prevail to some extent. I mean, the Supreme Court would not have allowed this policy to go forward for 90 to 120 days if they truly believe that this was unconstitutional. So if it does get to the Supreme Court, the president has a pretty good chance of winning.
Well, switching gears, President Trump is pushing for 2 bills, Kate's Law and No Sanctuary for Criminals, which cracks down on illegal immigration. The president tweeted out on Thursday evening, "Good news, House just passed Kate's Law. Hopefully Senate will follow." But Paula, I'm curious if the legality of these bills is being questioned.
Yeah, Rena, there's several legal issues here. Part of why Kate's Law has not received as much as support as some people had hoped is that because there's a big question of whether or not you're actually criminalizing being here illegally. Typically that is a civil crime, but here it makes it more of a criminal penalty, especially if you come here multiple times. But many people argue that it should be a criminal act if you come into the United States illegally on multiple occasions. And also the other bill, it's trying to give the federal government sort of more authority to force local entities, local law enforcement officials to cooperate with them on immigration enforcement. Right now, they don't have a whole lot of power over local officials who don't want to cooperate on detainers. The only thing they can really do right now is withhold certain federal grants, but they want more power. It's not clear whether or not the law is on their side in terms of the federal government really having teeth and being able to punish local governments that do not want to cooperate or participate with federal immigration enforcement.
Paula Reed in Washington. Thanks, Paula.